Wow. All right. Again, a lot of new things this morning. I'm trying it out. You have to try new things if things are going to work for you. You have to be willing to give it a try. So I just had mine. Thank you for your patience for coming on with me. I just did my Momentum Monday over on my Facebook group and also on YouTube. And I shared the title you can see here, Creating Your Goal Visualization Journey More Than a Vision Board. And I shared 3 tips on how important it is to believe in what you're doing, be willing to commit, and being brave about your the journey ahead. And as we celebrate Martin Luther King Day today in the US, January 16th, 2023, there's so many things to think about. And one of the key speeches that Dr. King is known for, of course, is his I Have a Dream speech, which, by the way, is a speech he gave, is a quote, is a phrase he used often in many of his speeches. But apparently, on the day when he delivered it in Washington on the great, at the Lincoln Memorial, he apparently just ad-libbed a lot of that speech. And so it kind of came to him as he was speaking that day. And it was obviously very prophetic because that's a speech that many of us remember when we think of Dr. King having a dream. So today I was thinking, well, he had a dream, but what is your dream? And as entrepreneurs or people building businesses and so forth, we all have dreams, and can we see them as clearly as he was able to highlight his dream and showcase what his dream was? Do we also have that vivid vision, that visualization of our own dreams? And so a few months ago, I had gone to Barnes and Noble and got a few biographies, various books of famous people that we all have heard of and know of, but maybe are not totally familiar with more of the intimate parts of their lives and their journey to greatness, their journey to achieve what they actually achieved, why we even know of them. And so one of the books I picked up was the autobiography of Dr. Martin Luther King, and it was edited by Claiborne Carson. And in this, you can see there's Dr. King and a picture of Mahatma Gandhi up there, who obviously greatly influenced Dr. King and his nonviolence movement. I also got the biography of Mahatma Gandhi as well. That's on my reading list. So I got Gandhi, Martin Luther King. I don't have my pile in front of me right here, and Napoleon, which many of you, I've spoken about my Napoleon book, which is still an ongoing saga, because when I read that book, I can't put it down and I can't do anything else. So that's why I haven't finished it yet, because it is such an all-consuming project, but I will indeed complete it this year. It's on the goal chart, on my goal list to actually do. Anyway, so today, focusing on Dr. King specifically, I went just kind of thumbing through the book and just picking out certain things that he shared. And one of the key phrases he mentioned, actually during his March on Washington speech, as I said, we're all familiar with I Have a Dream, but there's something that he mentioned in the speech that he also mentioned in other speeches. And I'm just going to read this small paragraph for you. It says, "But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. Soul, S-O-U-L, soul force." So I was struck by the high plane of dignity and discipline and the idea of the soul force. Yes. And by the way, let me just share, if you're watching me on Instagram, I'm not able to see comments. I'm not able to see anything. So please make sure after this live, go into the go into the post and just share a comment or share something that you might have wanting to ask me, because unfortunately I'm not going to be able to see. So don't think I'm ignoring you by any means. It's just the way I'm set up here. I'm not actually seeing anything. Um, it's just not seeing stuff. So let me see here. Let me see if I can. I don't think so. I don't think I can. Um, anyway, as I said, I really hope this is working. And if it's not, I will upload it. Okay, we'll just go with it. We'll go with it. All right, so that is a very poignant comment from his thing, the dignity and discipline. And it struck me that as entrepreneurs, we too need to exert the same dignity and discipline in the realization of our dreams and have that fierce fight to go forward to really defend what you believe in. So let me just share a few more thoughts from reading this book that I think will be uh, an appropriate time of reflection as this event is taking place today. Again, Martin Luther King Day. He in reference to his "I Have a Dream" speech, he writes, "I started out reading the speech and read it down to a point. The audience's response was wonderful that day, and all of a sudden, this thing came to me. The previous June, following a peaceful assemblage of thousands of people through the streets of downtown Detroit, Michigan, I had delivered a speech in Cobo Hall in which I used the phrase, 'I have a dream.' I had used it many times before, and I just felt that I wanted to use it here. I don't know why. I hadn't thought about it before the speech. I used the phrase, and at that point, I just turned aside from the manuscript altogether and didn't come back to it." And then he proceeded to share about his dream and what he expounded upon in his speech. And I want to go back before that, though. So we normally see someone, a very confident individual, apparently fearless, very convinced, very eloquent, very articulate, expounding on this vision of one day I will see. Let me tell you what he says. Um, on the plains of Georgia, what did he put it here? He says, "I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood." And he proceeds to tell us what he sees, right? That's one of the things. And we know if you read this speech, it's very worth reading. I know we hear it, but sometimes you want to read it because the words can bounce off your eyes in a different way. And so, "I have a dream today" was the refrain throughout which he used throughout the speech. But what was happening before he got to that point? What was happening with Dr. King before he even got up and gave any speech that he gave? And so, as I read earlier in the book, it was this constant battle and struggle. We know that during the times of the Civil War era, the late 60s, and of course, a lot of that's, unfortunately, many things are still persist. But before all these civil rights laws were written, there was a daily threat on his life, daily threat of his family, daily fear for just well-being. His house was bombed, churches are bombed, neighbors are, I mean, you can name it. It all happened. And of course, unfortunately, the worst happened, as we know. But he was prepared for that. And so, going before all of this, some of the things that he experienced, and I want to share this one thing with you. And again, as entrepreneurs cultivating and crafting your own dreams, these are some of the things to keep in mind, that you might face what you perceive to be insurmountable obstacles that will come upon you when you least expect it, and may kind of deter you from wanting to go forward. And Dr. King experienced that. I mean, he was a human being like all of us, and he experienced fear and all the things that we experience too. And so here is an example of what he dealt with. And I'm just going to kind of just skip through certain parts just to highlight it. I think there was a protest or something that he participated in, and he was talking about after the protest. "As the weeks passed, I began to see that many of the threats that I was receiving were in earnest. Soon I felt myself faltering and growing in fear. One day, a white friend told me that he had heard from reliable sources that plans were being made to take my life. For the first time, I realized that something could happen to me. One night at a mass meeting, I found myself saying, if one day, and he's saying this to the crowd, if one day you find me sprawled out dead, I do not want you to retaliate with a single act of violence. I urge you to continue protesting with the same dignity and discipline you have shown so far. A strange silence came over the audience. One night toward the end of January, I settled into bed late after a strenuous day. Coretta had already fallen asleep, and just as I was about to doze off, the telephone rang. An angry voice said, "Listen," and it used a word that I will not be using. "We've taken all we want from you. Before next week, you'll be sorry you ever came to Montgomery." And of course, that's Montgomery, Alabama, where they were protesting. I hung up, but I couldn't sleep. It seemed that all of my fears had come down on me at once. I had reached the saturation point. So, this is Dr. King after receiving this threatening phone call. I got out of bed and began to walk the floor. I had heard these things before, but for some reason that night it got to me. I turned over and I tried to go to sleep, but I couldn't sleep. I was frustrated, bewildered, and then I got up. Finally, I went to the kitchen and heated a pot of coffee, and I was ready to give up. So he says, with my cup of coffee sitting untouched before me, I tried to think of a way to move out of the picture without appearing a coward. I sat there and thought about a beautiful little daughter who had just been born. I'd come in night after night and see that little gentle smile. I started thinking about a dedicated and loyal wife who was over there asleep, and she could be taken from me, or I could be taken from her. And I got to the point that I couldn't take it any longer. I was weak. Something said to me, "You can't call on daddy now," which is his father. "You can't even call your mama. You've got to call on that something in that person that your daddy used to tell you about, that power that can make a way out of no way." With my head in my hands, I bowed over the kitchen table and prayed aloud. The words I spoke to God that midnight are still vivid in my memory. "Lord, I'm down here trying to do what's right. I think I'm right. I'm here taking a stand for what I believe is right. But Lord, I must confess that I'm weak now. I'm faltering. I'm losing my courage. Now I am afraid. And I can't let the people see me like this, because if they see me weak and losing my courage, they will begin to get weak too. The people are looking to me for leadership. And if I stand before them without strength and courage, they too will falter. I am at the end of my powers. I have nothing left. I've come to the point where where I can't face it alone. It seemed as though I could hear the quiet assurance of an inner voice saying, "Martin Luther, stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. Stand up for truth. And lo, I will be with you even until the end of the world. I tell you, I've seen the lightning flash." Again, this is Martin Luther King speaking. "I've heard the thunder roar. I've felt sin breakers dashing, trying to conquer my soul. But I heard the voice of Jesus saying still to fight on. He promised never to leave me alone. At that moment, I experienced the presence of the divine, as I had never experienced him before. Almost at once, my fears began to go. My uncertainty disappeared. I was ready to face anything." And to just kind of fast forward a little bit, the following few days, his house got bombed. He was not at home, but his wife and young baby were at home. And let's see. So that's what he was prepared for. And so the point is, this is, and I'm sure he had many, many, many nights like this, but this one in particular is highlighted as being a seminal moment for him, crying out to God to really strengthen him for his journey ahead. And I find this really fascinating. I look forward to completing this book. But one thing I found also intriguing, and again, I think of parallels for the entrepreneurial journey. Many times you feel like giving up your dream. Many times you feel like you have so many challenges facing you, you're not quite sure how you're going to carry on and how you're going to move forward. And Martin Luther King, as a man of faith, he cried out to God for help. I cry out to God for help personally. And if I'm in such a situation, that's what I do. I pray. I ask God for guidance and direction and for that calm and that peace. And then he guides you back to your vision, your goal, this thing I have up here about your visualization journey. What do you see? I have a dream today. What do I see? What do I see for myself and for my business and for my impact on the world? And what is it that I am seeing? And one of the reasons I launched my Supercharge Club was because it's a community to help people through this journey, through the entrepreneurial journey. Martin Luther King, he had his church, he had the different entities that they created around the movement of civil rights to fight for it, um, to organize the marches and to organize the movement, really the civil rights movement. So, whatever sphere you're in, what can you organize to create your own movement for what you believe in? I believe that entrepreneurs need support. I believe that they need help and guidance and encouragement and accountability for their goals and their dreams. And so, whatever it is, whether it's fighting for civil rights or building a new business or something else that you see, you envision in your mind's eye, you want to cultivate and create an ecosystem for it to flourish, for it to survive, and for you able to do it, and not only survive, but obviously to thrive ultimately, and to do it with that dignity and diligence that he highlights. Yes, diligence and dignity, because none of these things came to being without a lot of sacrifice and a lot of preparation and planning and organization and that community support. So again, there's so much more that I could read, but I know our time is limited. However, I wanted to just highlight another little part. There's something that was very interesting that I learned that I had not known before about Dr. King and his life and what he experienced. So we know that in the United States we have this right, our constitutional right to bear arms, and that's one that's fiercely defended by many people. And there was a time when Dr. King also had a firearm in his home as a form of protection. And then he came to the realization that how can I, and I'm going to read this part, when he was under all these threats and attacks, he was urged to have armed guards protect him. He was urged to um, do all these things to kind of protect his life from all these constant threats. And so he had, and I may be telling this a little bit out of sequence, so forgive me if it's a little bit backwards. But at one point, he had gone to request a firearm for protection, and he went to the sheriff's office to get a license to carry a gun in his car, but he was refused. Okay. Anyway, meanwhile, he reconsidered, how could I serve as one of the leaders of a non-violent movement and at the same time use weapons of violence for my personal protection? Coretta and I talked the matter over, and of course, Coretta Scott was his wife, and I talked the matter over for several days and finally agreed that arms were no solution. We decided then to get rid of the one weapon we owned. We tried to satisfy our friends by having floodlights mounted around the house and hiring unarmed watchmen around the clock. I also promised that I would not travel around the city alone. I was much more afraid in Montgomery, Alabama, when I had a gun in my house. When I decided that I couldn't keep a gun, I came face to face with the question of death and I dealt with it. From that point on, I no longer needed a gun, nor have I been afraid. Had we become distracted, and let me highlight this sentence, had we become distracted by the question of my safety, we would have lost the moral offensive and sunk to the level of our oppressors. Interesting point. We love to know your thoughts on this. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. As I said, if you're watching this live on Instagram by chance, I will not see your comments. So please, if you do have comments for me, put them in the post because I definitely would love to see what you have to say and be able to respond to you accordingly. Okay. So yeah, just know that I cannot see any live comments right now. I'm using one stream and this is my first time using it. As I said, I hope this is working. I hope I'm not talking into a void. but I'm recording it, so if it doesn't, I'm gonna still upload it. Anyway, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that was an interesting thing, wasn't it? I had not known that. That's not one of those facts you wouldn't necessarily know. But the point is that he had these dilemmas as well. He had to grapple with them uh, for his fight. And again, we may not be in something, the fight for the death. Your business may not be something that you're receiving any death threats over. I hope not, anyway, or be put you in any kind of life threatening situation. But the reality is that you still have to fight for your dream. And I always say, never let your dream happen without you. Don't let your dream happen without you. If it's your dream, commit to it, believe in it, as I have over here. You see, believe in it, be willing to fight for it and commit to it, and be brave to be able to withstand the pressures that may come your way to might dissuade you from it. And finally, remember to have that dignity and diligence in the pursuit of your dream. And with persistence and perseverance, you too can overcome, yes, the challenges that will inevitably come your way. So let me do one little test before I end the session. I just want to see if I can see if I'm live, but I can't tell if I'm live or not. Because if I could see it, I would then be able to comment or say something. Nope, it doesn't show me. So I really can't tell. I really hope this is going live. Anyway, and those of you on Facebook, thank you for watching. You guys, thank you for look forward to your thoughts. As I said, I will read your comments afterwards. As a matter of fact, let me just quickly pop over to here and see if anything is coming through. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, I am actually live on okay, that's working. I see it's live on Facebook. That's great. So that's kind of cool. All right, so let me just share this. Martin's dream. Yes. And as we reflect on his dream, we definitely want to reflect on ours, because your dream is also valid and important and worth pursuing. Okay, so I'm just seeing this, not have this going on at the same time. All right, so that's really great. And I'm just trying out the technology. You have to be willing to try new things sometimes. This is a new setup that I'm trying, and I think I really like that it worked like this today with one stream. Okay. Yeah, one stream is a multi-streaming platform where you can go live in multiple places at once. And I normally use it for pre-recordings, but I have never really gone live, like real live throughout the multi-platforms with it. So today is a first, and I'm trying it out, and it's so far so good, but I'm not sure what it's doing on Instagram. I don't even know if it's going through on Instagram. Okay, I said that like 100 times already, so I won't say it anymore. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, joining this discussion, this interesting discussion. And again, I was reading from the book, The Autobiography of Martin Luther King, and edited by Claiborne Carson. I know it's going to be backwards on the screen, but you get the idea. And this is I'm really looking forward to going more into this book and getting a sense a little bit more than we might hear usually shared, and just kind of understanding the journey, because it's all about like, what is this journey all about, and how do we endure it, how do we overcome it, um, how do we make sure that our dreams don't die. And we do know that unfortunately Martin Luther King was assassinated, but his dream lived on. And he highlighted in the book that even if you take my life, my dream will live. And so it will not die with me. And that's the beauty of a dream, that it can transcend an individual. It can transcend a situation, and it can transcend threats, and it can transcend oppression. And so that's how you have to see your dream, as something that can really live way beyond yourself and live into posterity by you investing today in that thing that you believe in, and being willing to commit to it in such a way that you will not be deterred by smaller minds, threats, and above all, your own self doubting your ability to bring it to life. So I really encourage you to do that. And again, thanks for being with me today. I hope I see you on Thursday, January 19th, in our next session of the Supercharge Club, where we will be really talking about promoting your dreams and making your dreams come true and through. On the month of January, it's all about the dream, your dream as a business, what your dream is for business, and having the realistic steps to approach what it takes to make it happen, the diligence that you need to apply so that it works, so that it happens. And going from just seeing something in your head to bringing it to life. So that's what it's all about. Anyway, thanks for being with me. Thank you for uh, reflecting with me on this very important topic. And as we remember Dr. King and what he went through, and what he went through in his head, in his own mind, and how that has impacted the world, and the decisions that he made to really persist in his vision for his dream. And so I wish you the same, as well as you persist in the vision for yours. Don't forget your dream, everybody. And certainly don't make it happen without you. Stay supercharged, and I'll see you soon. Now, what button do I press to stop? Okay, this is one. Okay, button one. Okay. Alrighty, bye bye.